This AskReddit user asks, what completely made-up fact, if true, would totally change history? I think it was Red Dwarf. British TV show from the 80s. That's sort of still going. Can't remember exact quote, but it opened with the spaceship's commuter telling the crew, "We have just found the front page of the Bible. It says, 'To my friend Steve, all persons and situations are fiction and bear no link to any persons or places.'" Okay, I have butchered the quote, but you get the idea. Link. The clip. I was close. They also had an episode where they kept SG up the Kennedy assassination. If everybody expected the Spanish Inquisition. It was expected though. They sent notice in writing that they would be coming. But let's say the messenger got lost. Or fell down a well. Or joined a group of minstrels. Or lost the message. He joined a group of minstrels and they were then eaten by a group of hungry knights. There was much rejoicing. Star Wars was originally a manga. All famous leaders were actually vampires. Except Vlad the Impaler. He's a werewolf. Seeds grow in your stomach. This makes me uncomfortable. Any Jedi can force heal. Caveman lived with dinosaurs. Native Americans had guns and prevented the colonization. The same resistance to Euro diseases that Euros had would actually have helped a lot more. If Eminem's father didn't leave. The US never achieved independence and remained under rules of the European colonies. Just imagine how different the US would be if it was still under Europe's thumb. NGL. I've been thinking of a story set in a steampunk world where this exact scenario is a thing. Also, the American continent wasn't colonized until the 18th century. NGL. I've been thinking of a story set in a steampunk world where this exact scenario is a thing. Also, the American continent wasn't colonized until the 18th century. France's support during the war was immense. Britain had to fight a war on its doorstep and across an ocean. While America was being given weapons and supplies. British ships of soldiers and supplies had to get through the French Navy. I could go on. Without France in the war, Britain stands a decent chance at winning the Revolutionary War. Also note that France and Britain was just in a war with each other. Although Britain won, the crippling debt caused them to raise taxes greatly on its colonies. Especially America, causing the Revolutionary War in the first place. Make Britain do better in the 7 Years' War. And the colonies might never even rebel in the first place. It's starting to feel like our government has become a George III of our own making. Not gonna lie. The Earth only has natural disasters because it's cranky. If we all just be quiet for a day, the Earth will calm down and everything will be okay. If planet Earth was flat, gravity would be interesting. Gravity is fake. The flat Earth is just accelerating upwards at 9.8 meters per second. 2. Which makes it seem like there is gravity. Has anyone done the math on how long would take to reach light speed? That Jesus was a white guy. The South won the American Civil War. Check out the movie C.S.A. The Confederate States of America. It is a mockumentary about exactly this. And is pretty good. There is also Turtledove's Southern Victory series. There was a mockumentary about that on Netflix. Greek mythology is real. Imagine the amount of Twitter feuds we'd have to endure from the gods. Zeus would have been #cancelled eons ago. That would be awesome honestly. As long as it stays on Twitter though. The Nazis begin research into atomic weapons shortly after seizing power. They have a small nuclear arsenal by 1939. At 3:41 p.m. August 5, 1482, the force of gravity flipped. Yellowstone blew up every 100 years and the only way to avoid it is through a pinball tournament. I have not adequately trained for this one, boys. Yellowstone blew up every 100 years and the only way to avoid it is through A virgin sacrifice into a volcano? Active and ancient artifact? A pinball tournament. Wait. What? Don't worry. I've heard about an absolute champion at pinball. Funnily enough, he doesn't speak and can't hear or see. But the kid is a veritable wizard at pinball. Earth was a water planet until a massive alien asteroid collided with Earth, creating Pangea. It actually didn't snow in Russia. So the Germans pushed their way through Russia. Something that isn't made up as your cake day. So happy cake day. I know the Russian winter is an awful thing and dumb as HL to try and avoid. But I highly doubt that even if it was a tropical place Hitler would have succeeded. Stalin sacrificed millions of his people and basically destroyed his country on that side of Moscow to make sure Hitler didn't take it. The mud played a more vital role than the snow did. I don't think Hitler, or any of the OKW, expected that level of slash and burn tactics, and just raw destruction of their own countryside. But you are right about it making a difference. The snow made the mud. I think this sentiment would make a lot more sense for Napoleon though. No Russian winter would have made Napoleon march easily into Moscow, possibly taking down the imperial family much earlier than the Lenin was even a sperm in his daddy's nut. And maybe would have even avoided both world wars. Carrots help you see in the dark. Neanderthals could turn ocean water into ice for walking across. Frost walker boots? The reason the British gave up on fighting the American Revolutionary War was so they could come over with their sexy accents and easily get laid. This worked for me. I married a beautiful American girl. It didn't work for me. But I was an overweight, socially awkward teenager. Now I'm an overweight, socially awkward adult. Same. Only mine as a boy. Abe Lincoln gets a funny feeling at the Ford Theater, so he turns around and sees his would-be assassin John Wilkes Booth and shoots him. Or he just doesn't go because they were running late anyway. I heard somewhere that Lincoln was actually a friend of J.W.B.'s brother. Edwin Thomas Booth was a very famous and talented actor at the time. Some modern scholars regard him as the greatest American actor to have ever lived. He would have held similar celebrity status as that of the president. Life on Earth is a simulation experienced by one person at a time. Every person experiences the same simulation. When does someone else get to have a go at living in their simulation? And whoever is in the simulation right now. Can you kindly get the FK out? Mom said it's my turn on the simulation. Jesus abused his powers of turning water into wine and became an alcoholic. What if he became a soccer mom instead? The live, laugh, love signs are directly quoting Jesus on one of his wine benders. What if he was a pimp and his 12 apostles were his way to make some extra cash on the side? The US has affordable healthcare. I know this thread has all sorts of crazy fake facts like the Earth is flat. But this is just too far out there. It turns out that Stalin secretly was into big titty anime girls. Wouldn't change much but would make him a lot funnier to study. The Soviet-Japanese alliance. The famous Kot Devushkas of St. Petersburg are a miracle among today's cloning enthusiasts. Wait, he wasn't already? That the pyramids were landing sites for alien ships. Daniel Jackson, is that you? The alleged lethality of dihydrogen monoxide. Isn't it a major component of acid rain? It actually has a pH higher than any other acid. It's true. It can be up to 1,000,000 times more acidic than things like bleach. Richard Nixon was innocent. Then his head wouldn't become president of Earth. Abraham Lincoln was actually 3 midgets standing on each other's shoulders. After his assassination, the 2 remaining midgets went on to become Rutherford B. Hayes. Fun fact. The many children of the 2 went on to become William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft was made up of 6 midgets vertically for his height and 4 midgets horizontally for his circumference. Andrew Jackson was an early mech suit for a very powerful and angry midget. The Earth is flat. And only 7 inches deep. Well, nobody has ever dug that deep, so we'll never ever know. We could just pierce it with a giant hoop. Convert into a Ferris wheel. And hang out in space sipping tea. And eating biscuits. The Fire Nation didn't attack. Nothing changed when the Fire Nation didn't attack. Long ago, the 4 nations lived in harmony. They still do. But they used to too. I believe Aang can keep the world safe. It wasn't dangerous or anything. But he can keep things from getting messed up. The Secret Service and FBI properly discussed JFK's motorcade route and modified it upon discovering that it passed the Texas Schoolbook Depository, where one Lee Harvey Oswald was employed. And one of Lincoln's bodyguards, the one sitting behind him, didn't go to get a sip of water at Ford's Theater. Also, doctors never attempted to remove the bullet in James Garfield's body. Stephen King wrote a book about saving JFK. Turns out that the bigger impact your actions are going to have, the harder it is to follow through and the worse the consequences. November 22, 63. Red Dwarf. A BBC series that follows a group of space degenerates 3,003,000 or so years into the future. Had an episode that followed a minor time travel mishap concerning it. Wound up with every major city in America abandoned due to fear of nuclear attack. Columbus wasn't a murdering con artist and had good relations with the inhabitants of the lands he discovered. Or the natives of the Americas had a resistance to smallpox and other diseases. Hitler got into art school. Timeline 368HWE5 branched off from the core timeline in 1907. Timeline 001 AAAO. Due to disruption from unauthorized use of a time machine by Keanu Reeves. In this timeline, Adolf Hitler's application for the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna was accepted due to influence by the aforementioned time vigilante. It led to Hitler eventually becoming an art teacher. And then respected professor. In 1960, he retired and moved to Alaska to paint the landscapes there. This prevented him from ever entering politics. However, without him, World War II was not prevented but merely delayed. It was 1962. When war broke out, a young Bob Ross had joined the Air Force and was stationed in Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska. He had been taking painting lessons, run by a European ex-art professor. The two had bonded over their love of art, but once the war broke out, there was mistrust of foreigners. Bob Ross was instructed to continue his tuition under Hitler and monitor him for any sign of anti-sympathizing. For a long time, it appeared that Hitler cared for nothing but his art. This was until February 29, 1964. When Bob was in Hitler's study with him. He went to the drinks cabinet to pour Hitler a glass of brandy but slipped and fell on a wall light. This activated a hidden door and inside was room full of spy equipment. Hitler had been a spy all along. Bob immediately drew his gun and arrested Hitler. Then came the verbal exchange. Famous in this timeline. Bob. This is not VOT, it looks like. You've made a mistake. To which Bob replied, we don't make mistakes. Just happy little accidents. Thought this was gonna end with Bob Ross being the new Hitler and it made me really sad. No context. Kraken multiplied prolifically and took over the oceans, threatening all who dared to travel by sea. The Karens delayed every ship by demanding to speak with the manager of said ships. I misread the ops post as Karen multiplied prolifically and took over the oceans, threatening all who dared to travel by sea. So what you're saying is we have lots and lots of readily available seafood. But it's all calamari. The ruins of a temple-like structure was found on the dark side of the moon. You mean the Monfils Summer House? Masturbation made you go blind. Sui IGBSJSKHHS. What? He did not go blind. The probability of him typing the exact same gibberish twice is next to impossible. The Native Americans committed genocide of the people who preceded them in the U.S. So Native Americans came from somewhere else and then killed the natives? Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.